Exactly 7 years ago, in August of 2016, I came across the concept of TMS, Tension Myositis Syndrome, and the name of Dr. John Sarno for the very first time. At the time, I had been suffering from chronic sciatica pain in both my legs, neuropathic pain in both my arms, and also shoulder pain. I had also some other aches and pains all around the body, muscle pain, and pretty much all of my symptoms were not explained, in the sense that I was given different explanations for why I had my symptoms, all of which didn't quite make sense. It didn't quite make sense why I would be having so much pain without actually having had a serious injury. So for those of you who don't know, TMS refers to mind-body syndrome, tension myoneural syndrome, and it's a term that encompasses a number of symptoms, often chronic, that occur in the body as a result of emotional distress, like long-term chronic stress, repressed emotions, negative emotions, of course, and basically it refers to the mind-body connection. So what happened to me in August of 2016? I very luckily came across the term by accident. I decided to look into it because I had given up on all other treatments. Nothing else was working. And the only thing I hadn't really looked into was a psychological approach. I was very skeptical, like everyone else, because like everyone else, I wasn't educated about the mind-body connection. So now it's pretty obvious to me that our emotions, what we're going through emotionally, will affect the body. It's so obvious when you think about it. But at the time, I just couldn't understand how such extreme physical pain could be the result of an emotion or of a conditioning process. But this is what I learned. I took the time to learn. I took the time to reflect on my own personal situation, and it all made sense. So what happened since then? Basically, in the course of around 5 to 6 weeks, I resolved all my pains. I went back to normal physical activity. Some of you know my story already, so I won't go too much at length on that part of it. What I'm going to share with you today is more what's happened since then. What were my challenges since then? Also, as I started to become a chronic pain coach and as I started practicing. Did I ever have setbacks? Did my pain ever return? So this is what I'm going to share with you today. So basically, since I learned and applied TMS work to my own situation, I resolved pretty much all of my symptoms. All of my original symptoms went away and they almost never came back. There were instances when they threatened to come back, when I could feel the onset come on, but as soon as I realized what was going on, because the sensations were so familiar and I had trained myself not to be afraid of them, I could easily make them go away. I know it sounds crazy and it sounds like magic, but really that's how it works. When you stop fearing a symptom and you're really sure that it's only TMS and you're not scared by it, you're more likely to resolve it very quickly. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have setbacks. In fact, setbacks are part of the process, and my setbacks were in the form of alternate symptoms, mainly insomnia, which I struggled with for around 2 years without realizing that it was kind of another TMS symptom. It was another way for my body to show me that I was not living in alignment. So since I healed my chronic symptom, I had gone on to find a job. So I was full-time employed and I really didn't gel with the company. I really didn't like my new lifestyle. And because of that, my TMS came back in the form of insomnia. So I would just not sleep properly at night. I would wake up in the middle of the night, not be able to get back to sleep, get really worked up about it, and then the next day I would feel awful. And most days, I would say, like for half of the week, I would say that good days were an exception, like good nights and consequently good days were an exception for around 2 years. And also another symptom that popped up was my premenstrual syndrome, which got much worse after I resolved my chronic pain. And it took me years to realize that this was another TMS substitute. It's not that PMS doesn't exist. Yes, there are changes going on in the body, but how sensitive we are to these changes depends on how dysregulated our nervous system is. I learned this much later on, and so unfortunately, I did suffer from other chronic issues since I resolved my original symptoms. Now I'll go on to share my most challenging issue or frustration since I've learned about TMS. And that's, in the beginning, I thought that everyone would be open to this idea. I thought that I could change the world just by teaching people about TMS. And only gradually I realized that the majority of the world is not ready for this. So I had to live with this frustration of knowing that so many people are still suffering because they're getting the wrong information. And I must say that this is still a trigger for me today, though not as much, because I have now learned that it's not up to me to change the world. I have learned that it's okay that not everyone is ready for this and that everyone has to go through his or her own personal journey. I still get triggered when I hear of someone, especially maybe someone who I know or used to know, who's suffering from an obvious TMS symptom, and knowing that I cannot help him or her because knowing that he or she is going through totally conventional treatments and would never be open to what I have to say. And this is more challenging with family and friends for some reason. Apparently, I'm not the only one, because over the years I've spoken to other practitioners, other students who find it the most challenging to share this knowledge with family and friends. For some reason, it's much harder for your family or your friends apparently to really believe you. So I would say that this is the most frustrating issue that I've encountered since I've learned about TMS, and also since I went on to pursue my own career and to further my knowledge. It's to know that you are teaching valuable insights, and at the same time, you know that there are so many people out there who could benefit, and yet even if you just suggest it to them, they would automatically shut you out. So this is why I no longer participate in chronic pain groups. This is why I really stick to my niche, and I really only work with people who already know something about TMS or who are really, really open to the mind-body connection for some reason. Another challenge or maybe frustration, if I could call it that I've had to face since I've learned about TMS is that I can no longer ignore certain emotions. I can no longer live in denial. So because of the journaling and introspective work that I've done, I've learned to be really in tune with my emotions and to really, realize when something is not okay. So whereas before I used to kind of try to ignore certain negative aspects and keep going because I just wanted to keep things practical. Today, I cannot do that. If there is something that's really not gelling, something in my body or in my brain, it sort of starts screaming out at me, and I have to stop and listen. So I would say that it's a good thing because, of course, this voice or this, let's say, sense of awareness makes me more able to maybe make decisions that are in alignment, and makes me more self-aware of myself, my behavior, and that of others. But at the same time, it's also a challenge that, I can't ever ignore anything, or at least this is what I feel. I cannot just get a headache and blame it on, the sun, if I know that it's warning me about an issue that's not okay. So I call this the maintenance work. After you discover and work on TMS, you will be still vulnerable to certain triggers, especially emotional triggers. And this time, maybe you cannot just have your pain to step in and take over your attention, because you would know that your pain is there for a reason, and you would know that there's something that you have to probably tackle or acknowledge. So I wouldn't say that knowing about TMS is the easy way out of everything. It's definitely the best way out of chronic pain, but at the same time, you're not as able to ignore or deny certain issues, which is a good thing, of course, for your own self-development. But sometimes, as you know, we want to be practical. We want to just live and maybe not think too much. So I would say that that was one of my challenges as well, that I could never ignore what my inner self was telling me. So I would have to do something about it. So I would say that those have been the main frustrations since I've learned about TMS. On the more positive side, since then, I have learned that so many other conditions have an emotional component, and I have gained so much more trust in my body and in the body's ability to heal. I have tried various forms of meditation to try and find the ones that work best for me and for my clients. Obviously this has helped me also with my self-care. Most of all, it has been a comfort to me knowing that I am not just a victim to my health, that my health is not just a random thing, that maybe illness or pain is just not something random that happens to me, but that in a lot of cases I have control. In a lot of cases, I can reverse symptoms by releasing the tension from my body, because that's what TMS really is. It's an accumulation of tension in the body that can create so many different and unpleasant symptoms. And since that time, I have encountered so many different individuals with so many different symptoms who have managed to overcome them and reverse them, that today I feel that, no matter what, almost no matter what symptom might develop in future, I will know what to do, or at least I will know where to start with my journey, so with my healing journey. So I think this is the best, actually, benefit that I've gotten out of learning and experiencing TMS recovery, is that I now live with confidence that I have so much control. I wouldn't say even control, that I have such a role to play in my own health, really. And that makes me feel empowered. Okay, so I think that's it, really. Those are the main things that I've experienced since I learned about TMS 7 years ago. If you'd like to learn more about me and get to know more about my coaching approach and my programs, please visit my website, www.PainOutsidetheBox.com, where I also offer free guidance and as well as paid resources for those who are looking for a more structured approach to overcoming their chronic pain. Okay, so that's all from me for today. I wish you all the best and see you again next time. Bye-bye.